Steven, I know he hasn't been the Raiders coach for quite some time, but what did you feel when you saw John Gruden wearing all Chiefs gear today?
He is doing anything he can to get back into the NFL. That's my feeling on it. I don't have a feeling one way or another, but that man is desperate. If he is willing to wear Chiefs gear and to help the Chiefs, yeah, he wants back in the NFL. Bad.
But there's nothing that you felt when you were like, come on, John, what are you doing?
Not really.
Yeah.
No, because I look at Gruden as the guy who held the Raiders back for a couple of years. So I am kind of over him now at this point. Like, Gruden has done more harm than good to that Raiders organization, in my opinion. He did great. He did a lot of good for a few years, but what he did with the Buccaneers, I mean, I guess you could blame the Raiders for not changing up their play calls and the fact that the Bucs defense was able to read everything that they were doing in the Super Bowl. So maybe you should blame the Raiders on that, but I still blame John Gruden for it. And then everything that happened from post 2019 or post 2018. Yeah, I don't care about him one way or another anymore in his relationship to the Raiders. So him going with the Chiefs, I don't really feel anything for it. I just think that guy's desperate to get back into the league.
Oh, yeah, he's desperate. He's tired of coaching the Milan Siemens up in the ELF, the European League of Football. Is that
correct?
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I know the second iteration of John Gruden with the Raiders wasn't great, but I always remember the first time around, and that's what I'll choose to remember, even though all the other shit was ugh. But it's like still like I know him and Andy Reid are boys. It's just I hate seeing him in all Chiefs gear because I think of him as a young, like it's kind of like kind of compare Eminem or John Gruden to Eminem. Where like I remember the young Eminem, the good days where he was blonde and everything. Right. I remember John Gruden, the young John Gruden on the sideline doing the Chucky shit. I just don't like seeing him in Chiefs colors. But whatever, he's trying to get a job, like you said, Steven. He's seeing his old buddy Andy Reid at Chiefs camp, so. Whatever.
Yeah, but if you're feeling anything from it, that's okay because you had like something of a not a relationship with him, but you had a connection to him. That
I asked him what his favorite candy bar was.
You asked him what his favorite candy bar was. What was it?
Snickers.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. See, we're already getting comments on it. Ernie won. Is it St. Patrick's Day today?
Yeah, before we started, just your opinion, man, Stephen Langford, Derek Pop, but before we started, Stephen was like, we're both wearing green. Like, I got to change. I'm like, no, you don't need to do that. It's fine. Two guys are allowed to wear green on one podcast. We'll see if Ray Ratto is wearing green today.
It's just too loud. You know what I mean? It's too loud.
Hey, you're wearing an Orange Ducks shirt for whatever reason. I'm going to the A's game right after we're done with this. So, yeah, I'm wearing a nice Ricky Henderson shirt.
At least we weren't there last night. Jesus.
Yeah, bad game.
No, it wasn't the game. It was before the game. So I got a text from my brother. Mm-hmm. I guess they had the Monster Jam at Oakland Arena and the A's and Dodgers game scheduled in the same day.
Saturday.
And for whatever reason, they didn't open the security gates, or only half of them were opened. So my brother was stuck on 880 North. I think it was outside I want to say it was outside the 66th exit. Okay. And he was stuck there for 3.5 to 4 hours before eventually giving up and going home. But they didn't prepare for it. The Coliseum security didn't prepare for it. So a lot of people were really pissed off.
That's surprising.
Ian texted me at like, I think like 6:45 or something like that. He's like, hey, text someone you know and ask them what is happening. I'm like, what? And I'm like, he's like, we're at the A's game right now. We've been waiting outside. We've been waiting on 880 and we haven't moved for the last hour and a half. What the hell's going on? And
that's why I always barked.
Yes. And I wasn't about to tell him, hey, you should have taken another mode of transportation, or hey, you should have done this, because he'd spent a lot of money on tickets and it was fireworks night and it was his father-in-law's birthday. There was a lot going on. I wasn't going to make any suggestion, but yeah, they didn't prepare at all for both Oakland Arena and Oakland Coliseum. So a bunch of people were stuck outside. I ended up texting Cody. Cody told me what was going on. He also told me that Dina and her family were going. Dina is Cody's wife, and Cody's wife's family is from LA. They're big Dodger fans, I guess. And he told me they ended up turning around. And I I told my brother, I was like, "Are you guys gonna think about turning around?" Because he texted me at like 8 o'clock, and
Jesus.
we're still stuck in the same spot. And I'm like, "Are you gonna go?" And he's like, "I paid a lot of money for these tickets, and it's fireworks night. I'm not gonna just turn around."
God,
And then like,
what a total clusterfuck. Good
yeah,
lord.
then like 8:45, he texted me and said, "All right, we're turning around. We're done. We gave up."
So I do get emails from the Oakland A's, and I remember getting one about advising people to take Bart to the games just because they were expecting a heavy flow of Dodger fans.
Right.
And that's the case. But damn, yeah. Well, I tell
Yeah.
people to go Bart, but we're not gonna have many things to Bart to sports wise anymore. This is the A's are the last place where you can Bart to a game. Well, you can Ballers, I guess. West Oakland.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess if you're
You gotta
getting
walk though.
I guess if you're getting off straight at the stop, you can do Bart and Muni to Chase Center and Oracle Park if you
Yeah, but
want.
nothing's a straight shot.
No, nothing's a straight
Yeah,
shot.
and I hate that. Everybody, Ray Ratto is going to join us at 11:30. The Ray of Sunshine. And yeah, we're gonna ask him about state of sports journalism, a lot about the A's. He's got some opinions about John Fisher, and we'll talk about why he hates chicken wings so much. You and I love chicken wings; it's part of our thing. Speaking of which, I just watched the Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman Hot Ones. It was good, solid.
Yeah,
It was fine.
it just proves how good of an actor Hugh Jackman is.
Well, what way?
Well,
He's
because like
he's Australian.
Ryan Reynolds is just playing himself in
Yeah,
Deadpool,
yeah,
right?
yeah. He's just a smart ass. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But Hugh Jackman is just this like lovable, happy Australian dude. I think he kind of knows, he understands like
With a song in his heart.
he understands what he means to society because of who he plays. And I don't know. Now we're watching the X-Men movies. I'm like, yeah, he definitely plays a character. Whereas it feels like a lot of those guys don't really, except I guess Chris Evans does. I got to give Chris Evans credit. And I
So,
guess Chris Hemsworth.
so you and Jesse are going through all the old X-Men?
Yes, we just made it through the third X3.
That one, yeah. The first two are really good from what I remember.
First one was all right. First one was like introductory, so it was all, it was cool seeing the first moment of these guys on the big screen.
And it's crazy to me that they didn't give a shit at all to make Hugh Jackman look ripped. It was just his normal body at the time.
Yeah. X2 was really good. I enjoyed X2 a lot. X-Men, it felt like the first one, they were kind of just getting used to the whole turn comic book into movie thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was the first one that I remember. I mean, there was other ones like in the 90s of like, you remember The Phantom with Billy Zane?
No.
Yeah, it was bad. I remember my mom taking me like as a 5-year-old to go see that, and I was just jumping around the whole time. She's like, "All right, this is the wrong movie for you."
Or there's obviously Superman. The Supermans were the first ones, but they were kind of. I mean,
I'm talking about like
time.
I'm talking about like like obviously like the Michael Keaton Batmans, but then there was a point where people just didn't care about superhero movies. Like you imagine this, like 30 years ago, there was no superhero movies. It was original ideas. And then X-Men was like, whoa, they're making a superhero movie? People don't do that anymore. They did it in Spider-Man, and then everything's a superhero movie now. Yeah. Actually, speaking of hot ones, great interview. I haven't seen the whole interview yet, but great answer from Vince Vaughn. I think he was asked about why there's no more R-rated comedies, and he goes, well, honestly, executives are looking at IPs. It's safe to bank on, I'm taking something that's a property, a license, and it's already bankable. If I just, come up with an idea of two guys crashing a wedding again, well, then that's risky as hell. So people just want to cover their ass and save their jobs.
I think that's part of it.
I didn't forget about Blade. I remember Blade too. Yes.
I think he was also being humble with his answer, because I think another part of it is, there aren't people as funny as we are.
That's true too.
There's no one that's creating like Judd Apatow was. There's no one that's creating like there's none of those buddy comedies anymore. It felt like Owen Wilson was jumping from buddy to buddy. It was like Owen Wilson had Jackie Chan, then he had
Ben Stiller,
then he had Ben Stiller, then he had Vince Vaughn. I mean he was It was a little acting slut.
That's how he would describe it. He was a little acting slut. Oh, I'm a little slut. Yeah. Wow.
Wow.
All right. Before we get Ratto in here, because we're going to cover a lot with him, let's touch a little bit on some sports. And this counts as sports, I guess. Steven, tell me about the dog surfing competition you went to yesterday.
Sorry, Derek, I didn't go. The
What
person
the hell?
I know the person whose house that we were going to, one of them ended up coming down with COVID, and it's actually really unfortunate because the same exact thing happened last year with the same person. Now, the last year
sounds shady to me.
The last year she had the COVID, but it was
the old COVID.
The COVID, but that was like early in the week, and her significant other did not catch it. So we're like, all right, she's not. What's the word? I'm blanking on the word. Contagious. Thank you.
No,
yeah, she's not contagious, so we could go. But this time she tested positive like on Friday night or something. So we didn't know, and so we didn't go. But
damn,
yeah, I know.
So you didn't see any dogs surfing, huh?
Well, what would you like to know about it? I'm sure it's the same exact thing as last year. It's not like I don't know if it's a competition. It's not like
I don't remember you teasing it last year. No, I just said, like, I just wanted to know what you thought about a dog on a surfboard.
Well, it's the most adorable thing ever. I mean, come on, dude. It's a dog on a surfboard. The best is when there's two dogs. There's like one, like a golden retriever. Then in the front, there's
seems dangerous.
Then there's one in the front. There's a bulldog. We got the dog surfing competition now because it's ESPN 8 the Ocho.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But it's not like
or as I call it, second Olympics.
Yeah. It's not like a competition though. It's just dogs surfing and people there just with a few drinks, maybe smoking a little something. There's a lot of that reefer in the air over there. And then there's the Taco Bell Cantina in Pacifica, which gets a lot of business. It's right on that beach.
Okay. That sounds, there's a Taco Bell Cantina at Danville.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
They're very popular during COVID.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I
think my dad even asked, can you give us like sippy cups to take the tequila home? And they're like, no, sir. You can't drink and drive, so we're not giving you to-go cups.
Classic.
Yep. Well, that's Greg, bending the rules.
Yeah, I just I don't know how you first get the dog to surf. Like when you know that this dog is suited to get on the board. Like what's the training wheels?
No dog is suited to surf. Let's be real. The animals are not meant to surf. It's just a matter of, is their owner or trainer going to force them on a board? Let's be real here. No dog should ever wear clothes or surf. But we're just forcing them into situations. Or skateboard. I see all this dumb shit. It's funny, but we shouldn't force animals to do this stuff.
Yeah, the skateboarding one's a little much. But it's what they want to do, man. So these pets are smarter than we are,
Dog. The only thing that dogs want to do is go on a walk and shit and hump.
True. But what about jackets? You got to give them a jacket because sometimes these dogs get cold, Derek.
Dude, dogs don't want to wear clothes. They're uncomfortable in them.
But a jacket? I think they'd be very appreciative of a jacket.
They have fur.
But sometimes it's very thin.
Steven, you're underestimating dogs. Whenever I see dogs wearing clothes like at Christmas time and they put them in sweaters, I'm like, get that off of them. They want to be free. They want to be naked like the rest of us.
Well, that's because, Derek, you have had big-ish dogs in your life and only big-ish dogs, right?
Not true. Not true. My father's family had a little dog named Lucy. Still around. She's blind in both eyes.
Did you ever?
It's hilarious, actually.
Is it? Was she like bumping into walls and stuff?
Yeah. She's bumping into shit all the time.
Yeah.
It's terrible for her, but we get a good laugh out of it.
I feel so bad for those dogs. I had one friend whose dog was blind in his later years, and you just watch him walk, and he'd just trudge on over to a corner and just not really hit his head in the corner, but definitely tap his head in the corner to know, okay, this isn't walkable.
Yeah. All right, Steven, let's touch on a little bit of some sports. Team USA won on yesterday, Saturday morning, over Puerto Rico, 104-83. So I guess they got like what is the equivalent of the number one seed throughout the rest of the Team USA men's basketball. So, and I saw last night Draymond not calling out Steve Kerr, but basically being like, "How are you not going to play Jason Tatum?" I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Just stop. This whole thing is fucking stupid.
But Tatum did play yesterday.
I know he did play. I'm talking about the first game where he was like, "Now I understand why Steve didn't play him, but you got to play him."
Did he say it on like his podcast or
Yeah,
something?
he did. He did.
No, you don't. Why do you have to play anybody?
Exactly. Next time you want to be a coach, Draymond, by all means.
Yeah, this is. I don't know. Can I be honest?
Go ahead. That's all I ask.
I like basketball, right? I like the
You're
NBA.
Basketball Jones.
Olympic basketball doesn't really do much for me, and it never has.
Yeah, I agree. Like I put it on yesterday at 8 o'clock, and it was on the background, but I was like, one of my favorite phrases, it's like pistol whipping a blind kid. Like, come on, playing Puerto Rico? Okay.
Dude, I'm watching yesterday, and Puerto Rico cuts the deficit to 3, and then this is with like a little bit of time remaining before half, and then they go on a run, and they're up by almost 20 at the half when the deficit was 3, just because of a couple of simple plays where Puerto Rico was too quick to get a shot off. They were taking errant 3-pointers or getting layups up that they couldn't, or there was just some great defense. They're just totally outmatched, and it's unfair. I'm not into it. I'm really not into it. Olympic basketball. Actually, me and Shasky were talking about it in the morning. Olympic basketball, Olympic tennis, Olympic golf. Like, if these are mainstays throughout the year and we have popular events with these specific sports, we don't need them in the Olympics. See, Ernie too has Olympics has too much swimming coverage. I disagree. This is the bread and butter for swimming.
It's the only time you would watch swimming.
This is the pinnacle. Like, when I'm thinking about tennis, the pinnacle is like, I don't know, Wimbledon. Yeah, Wimbledon or one of those opens, not the
track and field. No, I'm with you, Steven. Like, I watch it because it's the only thing that really translates to sports talk radio here, because Steph and Steve are involved, but I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah, it's just it's no competition, and whatever, and sometimes it is. Sometimes you'll get
Serbia when they're playing Jokic.
Sometimes you'll get an Argentina that comes along with like Luis Scola or Manu Ginobili. Sometimes you'll get those guys, or Spain or Italy or something like that, but I don't know. And this is an interesting one from Tacky. What's the pinnacle of breakdancing? Yeah, I don't know what the pinnacle of that sport is.
Oh, that's easy. That's like in Rucker Park, like like when they have like Wild 95 just doing like a competition. That's the pinnacle of breakdancing, my friends.
Pinnacle of breakdancing is making it to one iteration of a Step Up movie. That's what the pinnacle of breakdancing is.
Or you got served.
Stomp the Yard. That was the pinnacle. That was the pinnacle.
Was that Channing Tatum?
No, Channing Tatum was Step Up.
Good God.
Stomp the Yard was that one with Chris Brown, and I think his name is Columbus, and he did that move where he like slid on his face, and he did it in slow-mo, and everyone's like, whoa.
Slid on his face?
Yeah, basically. He like did this.
So is that the definition of working your absolute face off?
Yeah.
Did you see Tyson Bagent drop that?
No.
Tyson Bagent, they were talking about, like, are you comfortable being the second string quarterback this year? And he goes, yeah, I feel comfortable because I absolutely, and this was the phrase, I absolutely grinded my face off this offseason. And they're like, what does that mean? He's like, well, I'll tell you guys what I did. I did burpee broad jumps for 1 mile. I was like, Jesus Christ. Sounds insane.
Was that on Hard Knocks?
No, it was he was just doing a press conference.
Oh.
Burpee broad jumps, like, good Lord. And they asked him, like, so how does it help you be a better quarterback? He goes, it doesn't.
Are we in for a Hard Knock star here?
We could have a couple, but we'll get to that in a little bit.
Because I saw the Caleb Williams thing where he explained his signing bonus and Tyson Bagent's reaction to it.
Tyson Bagent may be more entertaining than Caleb Williams.
I think we might have our character to watch in Hard Knocks already, because this dude acted as if he was having a seizure once he heard that Caleb Williams was making $25.5 million in signing bonus.
Well, what I want to see is how groomed up Matt Eberflus becomes every day, because like he must have got some pointers from somebody. Just be like, if you want to keep this Bears job, you got to look sexy.
It's a big.
So he's doing the hair. He's got the goatee.
It's a big deal. That's why John Gruden's not around. He didn't try to look sexy. All he was
That's
trying to
true.
do was create nightmares.
Yeah, and he also
He did with how to handle a team.
yeah, I remember also Lynn and I used to make fun of Gruden his first year when he came back with the Raiders. He used to have barbecue sauce on his shirt during games. Like, what'd that happen? What happened there? Come on, Gruden, you look terrible.
Ooh, hang on, random, Derek. I
Yeah.
don't know if you were into this. We got Ray Ratto coming up in 10 minutes. Can't wait.
We do.
Now the chat, Tacky and Skills specifically talking about movies here, and Tacky asked, wasn't Nick Cannon in a breakdancing movie too? And
No, it was
Skills
Drumline.
said, I know Cannon did Drumline. Drumline will go down for me as one of those like iconic, nostalgic childhood movies because I thought I was a little drummer when I was a kid. So I watched Drumline all the time. I showed my Scottish grandpa Drumline. I was like 8 years old and I was making my Scottish grandpa watch a movie about a drum line from Atlanta A&T.
I just love you, Steven, just being like, when I grow up, I want to play drums in an all black college.
Dude, yes. Yes, at an HBCU. That was my dream, bro. Not those fools from Morris Brown, though. I don't want to be part of that. We got the Morris Brown's colors on this podcast right now.
We do.
Morris Brown be spanking that ass.
Also in the world of Olympics, Simone Biles gets her 7th medal. She's got 7 total. So good for her. And I guess that means Jonathan Owens gets his ass back to training camp before everybody else freaks out. I will say, I know we were making fun of him last podcast. I don't care that he's going. He got a lot of unnecessary shit for going to see his wife.
We didn't make fun of him.
No, we were, but like I was like joking around, but like, do they really need him? Like they could be like, we don't really need this guy. We could cut him. But like people were like making fun of him on Twitter, being like, well, of course he's gonna go. He's like this 3rd-team special teams guy, and just like, yeah, but you know what? That's a special event. Let him go. Who cares?
I like how there was one post. My favorite was there was him wearing a gold medal, like him wearing Simone's gold medal, and taking a nice picture, and then someone responding, "That's not your gold medal. You didn't win it. Give it back."
Like, I mean,
people are weird, man.
People make fun of him, but you best believe we're going to have a crew that follows him to Paris. You'll see Simone Biles on Hard Knocks, I guarantee you.
Oh, 100%. She has to go, right? She has to go to the training camp.
Well, she'll go to the training camp, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a crew, like one guy was sent to go follow him while he goes to Paris.
Probably. Yeah. No, they had they
It's a huge storyline.
Yeah, they wouldn't be doing their jobs if they didn't do that.
And then an upset yesterday, Julian, I believe I'm saying her name right, Julian Alfred upset Sha'Carri Richardson in what was the event? Just sprinting or
the sprint, the 100-meter dash.
Yeah. Impressive.
You could see it from the semifinal though. Like it was the broadcast was trying to make it like Sha'Carri saving her energy so that because like once she saw she was in second, that she had no shot, so she just held back and kept in second. But I'm thinking to myself, like she got off to a pretty poor start, and this Alfred from St. Lucia just dominated from the jump. Are we sure? And then lo and behold, Alfred did the exact same thing in the second race. I don't know. Just it's being kind of a homer for the United States of America.
Yeah. Well, I heard the commentators say also like she appeared nervous before the race.
Maybe
that's interesting.
The first one, the first one. It's crazy what happened in the last one because I don't think it really got as much publicity just because we were all at home. But yeah, her getting suspended just for. I think she was just for smoking weed or something like that.
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
And she ended up getting suspended for a month, and it was right before the Tokyo Games, but it was right after she like dominated the U.S. Olympic trials. So she was going to go for gold then. And in this one, she hadn't had that type of pressure on her before, I'm sure. It's just different.
Yeah,
it's different.
Definitely. And then, I'll tell you what's different. My guy, Brian Pintado. Who's that? Well, he won the 20K race walk, also known as speed walking. He is from Ecuador, and he was leaving those guys in the dust. It's so difficult. Like when you see those guys, like I'm like above everybody else, and just if you see that you're that far behind, like how do you gain steam? Like if I was the speed walker, I'd be like, oh, I'll just run and beat you, but you can't. That's breaking the rules.
They kind of cheat.
Nah, they
It
maybe
feels
do.
like they cheat. They isn't the rule like you're supposed to have 1 foot on the ground at all times?
I don't know the rules. I just know that it makes me laugh, and that's all that matters.
Yeah, you watch it ironically.
I do.
Another thing out of the U.S., if anyone wants to cheer on someone from the Bay Area, someone that went to high school with Jesse, I think they were in the same grade. Someone that went to high school with Jesse in San Jose at Branham. He is on the men's volleyball team for Team USA, and he is quite the character. Taylor Averill. I think he's a blocker. So he's
Related to Cliff Averill?
No relation to Cliff Averill.
Okay.
Different spelling. Yeah. And also no relation to Averson Averett or whatever that Raider's name was, that obscure Raider from back in the day.
It's not even the same last name.
But anyway, yeah.
My joke was better.
Check him out on men's volleyball. Taylor Averill. Kind of a character, I guess.
Speaking of Raiders, let's sneak this in real quick before we get to Ratto. Raider fans maybe getting excited about week 1 because maybe Justin Herbert won't be around. It came out earlier this week that he has plantar fascia. I never know what the difference between plantar fasciitis and plantar fascia is, but it's basically in your heel and it hurts. And he's going to miss, I guess, the next 2 weeks. He's going to be in a walking boot, and they're expecting him to come back. Go ahead.
Hang on. Let me raise the hand here. Let me teacher point to me in the class. Plantar fascia is the actual tendon. That's not the thing that he has. Like the plantar fascia is the actual part of the foot.
All right. Well, that's the way people are describing it. It's okay. So
well, it's an issue in his plantar fascia, but it's not.
So he has plantar fasciitis.
I guess I don't know if it is plantar fasciitis. No one wants to put the itis on there, but plantar fascia is like an actual thing. Like it's part of your body.
That's what I thought, Steven. But the way that it's tweeted out and described, it may just be the Chargers Twitter account screwed up here. But yeah, that's the way it's described. He's got plantar fascia.
We all have a plantar fascia. It's okay.
It's a plantar fascia issue or injury. And I heard a bunch of people talk about oh, this is bad. This means that he's going to miss the bulk of training camp, and he may miss part of the regular season. It's never going to heal properly. It's always going to bug him. I heard his former QB Chase Daniel on his new podcast with Diana Rossini, Scoop City. It's not bad. It's a little cheesy at times, but it's not bad. He was saying that this is a bigger issue than people are letting on. My thing is, I'm no quarterback or anything. I'm not trying to say I've been in his shoes or in his feet.
In his fascia?
Yeah, in his fascia. But I have had plantar fasciitis before. I run on the treadmill, and it hurts like hell, but I've definitely run, while I've had plantar fasciitis. It hurts. It fucking hurts, but you can play through it. This guy broke his ribs 2 years ago and took his team to the playoffs. I don't see Justin Herbert missing any time.
Oh, you don't?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because I just don't. I feel this is extremely precautionary, and I feel like it's just they just want to make sure that he's 100% by training camp or by week 1, so they're keeping him out. And the whole thing of he'll be behind in the he'll be behind with training camp or he'll be behind in the offense. It's okay, but he'll still learn the terminology. And I think this was going to be a growing period for him anyway to learn Greg Roman's offense. So I don't think it's that big of a deal, to be honest.
Diagnosed with an injury to the plantar fascia in his right foot.
Maybe I just read it wrong.
No, it's not maybe. You did read it wrong. It was, yeah. That's a fact.
I have trouble reading sometimes.
That's fair.
Unlike our next guest, who reads and writes. And he speaks. He's a triple threat.
Whoa.
He's been a long-time Bay Area writer, and he's been on both radio stations, 95.7 The Game and KMBR. You could read him in The Defector, and let's not forget his biggest accomplishment. He was the star of NBC Bay Area's The Happy Hour. Ladies and gentlemen, Raymond Ratto. Hello, Ray.
I hate you.
No, that's not true. You love me. Otherwise, why would you agree to do this?
Happy Hour reference alone.
Let's
tie that to your dad, even though he was never there.
kind of like my childhood. So, Ray.
Oh, let's talk about that.
Yeah. Oh, you want to psychoanalyze me?
Let's dive into this. Yes.
Let's go deep on that.
Okay, by all means. So, let's see. It started when Jim Barnett used to change my diapers. Is anything else you want to know?
How old were you then?
I was about 15.
Yeah. That seems right about the right timeline.
Yeah, we got a photo of it.
Yeah, exactly. So Ray, how you been?
That's a problem for you, Steve. You should really that's not something you should be proud of having.
Yeah. No,
I don't know that you have it. Don't get me wrong. I just don't know that I talk about it.
Yeah, Derek took a selfie. It's a whole thing.
Ray doesn't even know what a selfie is. So Ray, how you been? Bay Area people, they know that you're Region the Defector, but how you been since the departure from 95.7 and the radio show?
I'm fine.
Okay.
I don't have any twitch in my face. I'm not walking with a limp.
Mm.
My wife hasn't killed me in my sleep. My children haven't asked for money. What else is there?
All right, you sound like you're good then.
Well, it's close to good as I'm ever going to get.
Steven, do you have a question?
No. I mean, I was just going to ask didn't you go to Europe recently? How was your recent trip to Europe?
Yeah, they closed it after I got there.
Oh, really? Yeah, they shut
It's
everything
riddled
down.
with disease now.
Here's what I will tell you. If you don't go to Portugal before you die, then you've wasted your life.
Oh, good to know.
Wow.
Everything else, sell it back to the natives. But Portugal.
Which part of Portugal?
Oh, Lisbon and Porto. I
Oh.
didn't get to do all of the Portugal that needs to be seen, but that was very cool.
Did you go to the beach in your Speedo?
Did I mention already that I hate you?
Not enough.
Well, then let me rectify that.
So let's start off with a serious question, Ray. Yesterday was the NFL Hall of Fame ceremony, and a lot of people spoke. I mean, all the inductees: Dwight Freeney, Devin Hester, Julius Peppers, Randy Gradishar, Stephen McMichael. Just curious, amongst those people, who was your favorite to watch?
Hester was the most fun to watch.
Yeah.
Freeney was probably the best player. But, Hester did something that almost nobody does anymore. And now nobody's ever going to do it again because they've made the kickoff rules, strictly CYO. So, I mean, he might be the one and only returner, whoever gets in. There may be somebody else that they squeeze in, but it's essentially a lost art. Because, I mean, how many punt returns are there a year for touchdown? One?
I don't think there was many this past year.
Yeah. And there won't be any kickoff returns anymore. So, I mean, he's an anachronism at age 45. That gives you an idea how the Hall of Fame works.
Well, let me follow up there. So you alluded to the new kickoff rule. We got a glimpse of it on Thursday night with the Hall of Fame game, and I think it's brand new. People are trying it out. I thought it was kind of weird. I don't know how it's going to work. What do you think about it?
It's going to get changed about 3 more times.
Yeah,
because it's one of the things that people who like to noodle around with the rules will be very fond of, because it will allow them to say, well, why don't we try this instead? And eventually you end up with the XFL, which will fold in a week after it starts. But I mean, for the most part, it's just, we don't like what we have, but we have no idea how to fix it. So let's just throw something up against the wall and see if it sticks.
Yeah.
And when it sticks, I mean, that'll be 10 years from now. I guarantee you there will be at least 3 more rule changes on that before they figure out something they like. And in all likelihood, what it'll be is kick the ball off from your own 40 and have the other guy run without being able to turn it into a touchback. It'll just be carnage, like they say they want to avoid.
Yeah. Think they'd ever get rid of it entirely?
That's conceivable.
Yeah.
But I'm sure that before they do that, because there are just enough guys on the rules committee who wish they brought back the triple I. So I mean, it's going to be hard to get that done, but they'll come close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking on the Hall of Fame, though, like with Patrick Willis, I mean, it was, I don't know, year after year, or I mean, not year after year. It's only been about 3 consecutive years where he was on the ballot, but didn't make it, I think, to the semifinals or at least to the finalists. And Now he gets in. I mean, is he? I mean, obviously he's a deserving candidate, but were you surprised that he got in just based on the amount of years that he played and how much longevity has a role in the Hall of Fame?
I'm never surprised when anybody gets in the Hall of Fame because every class is different.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't have a ton of really strong candidates. And I think, there weren't a lot of slam dunks in this group, it seemed to me. You have very good players. Nobody backdoored their way in, but there was nobody that you just went, my God, why is he not in yet?
Yeah.
And I think the big problem with Willis was that he did not play at an elite level for long enough because of the injuries.
Right.
So it doesn't bother me that he's in. It doesn't surprise me that it's in. But if it had been a better class, he might have had to wait longer.
I agree with that, and I think that I think you're just going to see a lot more guys that didn't play that long that are going to get in. Like we saw Calvin Johnson a couple years ago. I think he only played 7-8 seasons. But I would say this: if Patrick Willis is getting in the Hall of Fame and he deserves it, you should definitely, have a spot for Luke Kuechly. I think he's that much better of a player. Didn't play that long of a time.
Yeah, I think he's a guy who, has a reasonable case to make. But, when you go into a room, even if it's got 40 other people in it, that room changes too. And the things that they're fascinated by are different. Like 10 years ago when I, would go to Super Bowls regularly, I knew a lot of the guys on the committee. And I would have been surprised if any of those rooms had voted Willis in, and I'm not sure they would have voted Kuechly in either. But, the room changes. Old guys leave, young guys come in. And when I say guys, I mean people. That's just lazy on my part. But it's a constantly evolving standard to the point where you don't really know what the standard is because it's largely dependent on who's got a vote and who can make a compelling presentation. I mean, Kuechly may not get in if the guy presenting him, isn't very good. I mean, there were guys, over the years who looked like they had a pretty compelling case and didn't get in because the presentation made was not compelling. On the other hand, there was the year that Roger Worley went in, and he went in largely, based on the fact that Bernie Miklasz, who was the columnist in St. Louis at the time, really did his homework and made a great presentation and swayed a lot of people who were not that moved by Worley's candidacy on its own.
Do you currently have a vote in any sports Hall of Fame?
Baseball.
Just baseball? Okay. Did you in the past you had a vote in the NFL Hall of Fame?
No.
Oh, you never did? Okay.
No.
So
there are very few people who want me in any room with them.
Gotcha.
Hall of Fame or otherwise. And I really can't blame them. If I could leave the room I'm in, I would.
I would, you would leave this room right now to get away from this interview, I would assume.
Yes, but I'm still with me, and that defeats the whole purpose of the exercise.
Yeah. So, in your opinion, I know you haven't had an NFL Hall of Fame vote, but you had a baseball Hall of Fame vote. So I think I'm gonna know your answer here. But which Hall of Fame do you think has the best process, and which one do you think has the worst process of voting people in?
Baseball, because it has the largest number of voters. So there's less chance of, one guy being able to sway 5 others and, either put somebody in or keep them out. I just think the more people voting, the less chance there is of sort of, backroom deals. You vote for my guy and I'll vote for yours. I think football is better than basketball because basketball is smaller. And I think basketball is better than hockey because it's bigger than hockey. I think the fewer people voting means you have a less representative group. So on that basis alone, it's baseball.
Do you think it's always going to stay that the Baseball Writers Association of America, those are going to be the ones that vote into the Hall of Fame? Or is there ever going to be a change in how players get in?
I think the time for the baseball writers to vote either on the Hall of Fame or for the individual awards is probably coming to an end. I think baseball wants to consolidate everything. It's just, the owners are acquisitive by nature, and they don't really want to have anything attached to the writers. They want to have it under their own, marketing wing. Right. So mine is a minority viewpoint and it's not popular with other voters, but
Right.
I don't see baseball suddenly going, you know what? We love the writers. They do a great job. Because they can hire Tom Verducci and, his painter and his, insurance salesman, and they get the same results.
Yeah. But none of them can do a 5-minute monologue on MLB Network about how important his specific vote is to the Hall of Fame, like Tom Verducci did, who he was waxing poetic about it one time a couple of years ago.
Yeah, it was deeply moving. God, it's a 10-minute process if you're paying attention. And I like Tom, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
He holds the business in way too much reverence for my taste.
So speaking of which, last year at this time, I remember you filled in on Tolbert and Copes for Tom. You were doing the show with Adam. And it was around the time of training camp. What's that?
It didn't go well. I haven't been on since.
Don't worry about that. I'll pull some strings if you want to. It sounds like
it's still be an extra security guard at the front door.
I'll make sure. But last year at this time you were doing that, and I remember we had Nick Wagner on, who covers the 49ers, and it was around the time where we're doing it right now, where there's a ton of sports reporters, people that cover the Niners, tweeting out about people's stats in training camp. And you just lost it. And I was laughing my ass off. You were just like, okay, Nick, I don't care about training camp. Give me some dirt on Kyle Shanahan. How can we get him fired? and I don't think he got the joke, but you just turned to me and Adam, you were just like, I just hate training camp talk. And that's what sports reporting is now, is you tweet out how Brock Purdy's doing on a 7-on-7. Meanwhile, you're analyzing a training camp video of Brandon Ayuk shaking hands with John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan like it's the Zapruder film. And then you have like radio hosts like Colin Cowherd saying like, watch out for Brandon Ayuk news. He's trying to break news, but then nothing happens. That's a long, convoluted way to ask a loaded question. What do you think about the current state of sports media and how we go about reporting things?
We have managed to make the trivial important because the beast must always be fed. But training camp is 5 weeks of nonsense, and you're not going to deliver anything but nonsense. If news happens, it's only one of two things. Somebody signed a contract or somebody walked out of camp.
Yeah.
And I omitted the third one, which is the biggest, which is somebody blew out his Achilles. That's training camp news. Everything else is just nonsense. And, counting Brock Purdy's interceptions, that's the sign of somebody who, they're going to die lonely. I mean, it's just, they don't date now and they're not going to date anytime soon. I mean, what if he's trying something new? What if they're throwing new stuff into the playbook and he's just getting it down now? I mean, just, help me here. I mean, is he in danger of losing his job? I mean, he would have to set fire to Jed York, even get put on, as the backup. I mean, who's kidding who here?
Yeah.
Stop it. I mean, you have to go a long way to make legitimate news in training camp, but there are guys out there who need the job and they will do that job.
Yeah.
And frankly, more power to them, because that's what their bosses want. We don't care if it's important, just yammer about something. And, the Brock Purdy interception thing is one of my favorites. I mean, who's the quarterback? There you go, Wing T.
I don't know, Ray. 7 interceptions in 2 days. I don't know if this guy's the guy. Might not be worth the contract after.
Well, don't get me wrong. He stinks on ice. He's a horrible example of a human being. But no, I mean, I don't care if he throws 17 in 20 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean,
that'd be impressive.
It means they're in a hurry up offense. I'll give you that. But no, I want my world uncluttered by things that don't matter. And Brock Purdy's stats in training camp don't matter until you attach them to game one.
Yep.
And when they do, then I'll care.
Well, that brings me to, it's like, I think it's the rise of social media.
Why are you in your own storage closet?
Well, you don't like the Bisquick, the pancake mix? No, this is I got a small apartment, Ray. All right, I'm still trying
That's not a small apartment; it's a cell.
Yeah.
Well, Ray, why are you in your own hotel lobby?
This is not a hotel lobby. This is sort of a dump of an office I have. But at least I don't have like corrugated metal shelving that they got at IKEA for $8.
I think it's a Target purchase. Might have been Target or Amazon, but you know.
Well, throwing it around like it's nothing.
But I wanted to ask about kind of the rise of social media, because I think training camp stats are in big part because people are just scrolling through their phones and making sweeping proclamations based off one video that's posted from someone in the stands. But I think the rise of social media has kind of, and I'm not saying this is right at all, has kind of dictated the way we almost cover sports, or the way that fans talk about sports. I'm just wondering, when you witnessed that shift to where social media officially took over and people started, it's mostly from this boxing thing that happened this weekend with the Algerian boxer. And there's the whole debate about transgender people and whether they should participate in women's sports and all that. But then you really take a step back. That's all kind of fabricated. It was all manufactured off social media. It's not really what the conversation was. Well,
no, the Algerian boxer, first of all, was not a transgender fighter.
Exactly.
You know, she's a woman, period. Right. There's no debate. Right. That's all about politics. And that's how social media gets used. Mm. But the way you framed your question and the way I understood it was, when did social media become the driving force in sports coverage?
Correct. Yes.
And I would say the day after Twitter began.
Really?
Because, like I said, you have to feed the beast.
Yeah.
And if you have to use new utensils to feed the beast, you still have to feed the beast. And so all of a sudden, people are trying to justify, why am I at training camp? Why am I standing in 94-degree heat watching guys run into each other at high rates of speed for no apparent reason? Because that's my gig. I have to do it. I have to look like I'm paying attention. I mean, if you go to training camp and you don't tweet or don't do something with blue sky, your boss is going to say, why aren't you working? Because they don't care what the content is. They just want a full shovel of nonsense every 15 minutes, because they don't know how to evaluate whether it's useful or not, because most of it isn't. But, it's busy work. People who want to look busy can look busy. And the ones who look busiest are the ones who get to keep their jobs. And everybody else ends up working at Costco.
Where Steven got those shelves. So Ray, what do you think is the biggest or most important sports story going on right now that is not being covered enough?
That is not being covered enough?
It's not big on social media, but it's something that you think is important that just other people, it's not as sexy because people aren't tweeting about it.
I would like to think, although I'm sure I'm wrong about this, that the biggest story that's not being covered very much is the fact that the A's have not gotten any traction in Las Vegas. Because, and it's not just because it's the A's, this is a franchise that basically threw itself on a city that doesn't seem to want it and doesn't want to really go out of its way to get it. And so it begs the question, what happens if a team runs out of places to go? I mean, there are far more people who believe right now that they will end up staying in Sacramento just based on inertia than will go to Las Vegas. Because however else you want to measure this, whether you think John Fisher is evil or stupid or both, because those are the only two choices. He has an asset that's worth about $1.5 billion, and he needs somebody to give him $2 billion to build a stadium that is going to be on a piece of land too small. And if he doesn't get that, he's going to have to build the $2 billion stadium in Sacramento or sell the team, in which case baseball will have, gone to a market it doesn't want to go to. because it couldn't be popular enough to go to a bigger market. And that should scare the hell out of people in baseball. Should scare the hell out of owners in any sport. They may have run out of cities and billionaires. And I think that's probably the one. But this story's been going on for so long that I think people are just worn out. I mean, the A's sold out last night. And it was, that didn't get mentioned. But that's like finding the great white elk. I mean, that's how rare that is.
But is it mainly because of the Dodger fans that came?
Oh, almost certainly.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no question about that. But they didn't sell out the night before.
Okay.
It was a Saturday night. They were going out to see Ohtani. They got what they wanted. And the fact that anybody went to an A's game was the story that night. No matter where they come from. I mean, most Raider fans, don't go to games. Now, most of those games are populated 2/3 by the other team.
Yeah.
Right. So, excuse me. That's the new dynamic. Sorry about that.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Well, with John Fisher, I'm just wondering when was I know he doesn't do a lot of media, so I'm not sure if you've ever met him or not, but when was the first time he kind of popped up on your radar, and has your opinion changed from then to now?
No, he's still the blundering nincompoop he's always been.
Oh, okay.
I mean, to not be able to find a place to put a Major League Baseball team takes a lot of stupid. And he's got it. I mean, between not being able to develop relationships with other owners, to not being able to sell yourself to other cities, all of it. He was a nightmare 5 years ago. He's a nightmare 15 years ago. He's just not good at the one thing he wants the baseball team to do, which is go to a city and make him rich. Because he's never lost a dime, ever, because revenue sharing's taken care of him. But he wants to hit it big. And I guess Vegas would be the choice for any owner, if not for the fact that the city of Las Vegas doesn't really care about having a baseball team.
No.
It's got pro football. It knows it's going to get the NBA. And it's got a hockey team that it loves. And, baseball, it's played in the summer. Las Vegas is in the middle of hell. Who's going there? It's a balmy 113 with a windstorm coming out of right field. Who doesn't want that?
So, judging by the way you're talking, and I feel the same way, I would assume you believe that they're never going to make it to Vegas and that they're just going to stay in Sacramento.
I think it's the most likely scenario now, but that can change because everything about this has changed.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people who pay attention to this have thought all along that Vivek Ranadive, who owns the ballpark, owns the minor league team, owns the Sacramento Kings, reached out to John Fisher not because he's a close personal pal, but because they seized the opportunity to buy a Major League Baseball team for relatively cheap. And unless the other owners decide to vote against their own personal interest and stop that kind of a sale, I think it's about 2-1 for it staying in Sacramento. But like I said, if somebody figures out a way to actually create a hole in the ground in Vegas and start making something, I think that's the safest bet.
What do you think is the number one issue for not even just Major League Baseball, but for the NFL and the NBA? What do you think is their number one issue with Oakland? Because we've seen with Oracle Arena, we've seen it with the Coliseum. They can get the fans, and fans help a little bit drive revenue. So is it the optics of Oakland? Is it just the idea of them being in Oakland? Or is there just, they feel there's more money to be had elsewhere?
Well, you've got three different situations. One, with the Raiders, Mark Davis is not cash rich. He has to wait for the network check every year to be able to make his nut. And so he was not going to get the kind of payoff that other owners get unless he had his own stadium. And he wasn't going to get that in Oakland.
Right.
So he had to leave basically before he started actually losing real money. With the Warriors, Joe Lacob said the day he bought the team, he wants to put it in San Francisco.
Right.
So that was basically just a vanity buy.
Right.
You know, I want to be somewhere else. I want to be closer to where I live. And that's all that was. That wasn't, I mean, yes, it was a rejection of Oakland, but it was not powered by distaste for Oakland.
Right.
Because Oakland treated them very well, even when they weren't very good. And I think with the A's, it's just John Fisher has never liked the idea of having a team in Oakland. He's been trying to get out of that since the day he bought it. And really, since the day Peter McGowan got driven out of the Giants ownership, he's probably, wished he didn't have the team at all. But he's got it, and he's too stubborn to sell it. So, well, if I can't get a new stadium, and I can't, where do I go? I mean, because he never really wanted, the Harbor. He didn't want a new stadium in Oakland ever, and he would have found another way to weasel out of it if they had given him the money. Because it's not really just about that. He doesn't like the town, for whatever reason. And Vegas is the one thing that he fixated on, because there really isn't another city, with that profile clamoring for baseball. I mean, Portland says it would like to, but where are they going to put the stadium? They can't put it downtown.
Right.
Charlotte has said they don't want baseball. Nashville doesn't want baseball. Where are you putting this thing? Mexico City, San Antonio, they didn't have anything. I mean, they've talked about like 7 different cities, and they haven't been able to find a place. Now they're sort of hoping against hope that somebody will hold their hand and take care of them on their move to Vegas. And that's the biggest problem that Fisher has, is he wants somebody else to do the lifting for him. He's not the guy who's going to go press the flesh and, schmooze folks. He didn't do that with the owners 10 years ago. I don't know that he's really done it that much in Nevada. I mean, he just figures, I have a baseball team. Somebody wants to take care of me. And it's just, you've got to make that happen yourself. You can't sit back and wait for somebody to pat you on the head because you're bald and semi-attractive.
Hey, you talking about me?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Take this as a compliment.
I mean that.
I'll take semi, Ray.
Quasi. How about that?
Oh, quasi. A story that I don't think is getting talked about enough is this NFL lawsuit over Sunday Ticket. What are your thoughts on this whole, I guess, lawsuit and story about this?
Well, the jury got too ambitious for its own good. Gave the plaintiffs more money than the judge thought they should have, so he's thrown the suit out. Now they've got to refile. So I think we're back at square one with that. And with the NFL, they will throw lawyers at any problem. I mean, that's why they're too big to fail, because they are very aware of what they can do, what they can't do, and how to best do the things they want to do at the greatest price. And for that, you need lawyers. And so if they would have appealed this to like the International Court in The Hague, if they didn't get a favorable ruling in the Supreme Court, they'd drag this out forever. Ask former NFL players about their medical settlements. I mean, they always say, oh, we'll take care of you. And then they don't. Yeah. And then you have to go sue. Well, how many lawyers do you have? Do you have as many as they do? No. Mm-hmm. So you get crushed just by the sheer weight of their briefcases.
But do you think just pretty much where this stemmed from it started actually here with the Lucky Duck bar in San Francisco, where they thought it was ridiculous that bars are
mucky.
Mucky. My apologies. The Mucky Duck. Basically, the big thing is bars do not want to have to pay to have Sunday Ticket in their establishments, and also fans don't want to pay $3.49 every year for something that should be very much more cheap. So, what do you think about the whole thing from the beginning of it?
I will quote an old line: the NFL has all the supply, so they can demand whatever the F they want.
Yeah,
because nobody can stop them. The only way to drive down prices in this or any other economy is to not participate. Just say, well, I don't need it then.
Yeah.
I can do without football.
Mhm.
I don't know how many people there are like that. And maybe the NFL will at some point price themselves out. But for the moment, I don't see that happening. I think it would be a great thing to, teach those guys some humility and maybe get their prices to a point where they can get a lot more people to watch, and they'll still figure out a way to make the money. It's like when everybody said we need to get rid of cable television. It's crushing us. It's too expensive. So they basically got rid of cable, and now they're streaming, and they're paying more for streaming services than they are for cable. They, like I said, it's about lawyers. It's about, we know more about our business than you do.
Yeah.
And we will find ways to charge you for stuff that you never thought you'd have to pay for. And it's as simple as that. When people say no to the NFL will do something.
Yeah.
Until then, the NFL will take your wallet, steal your car keys, drive your car off the bridge, and then sell you a new car.
Hey, none of that matters as long as we can watch, Christian McCaffrey score a touchdown in the red zone. That's all that matters, really, at the end of the day, Ray.
You're still single, aren't you, Steve?
No, I'm not. I'm actually getting married in just over a month, but I do not need. Oh boy,
I wouldn't bet heavy money on that. I think she would come to her senses.
But
you're a grown man and you're wearing a shirt of Puddles the Duck.
Look, it's not Puddles, okay? I don't actually know his name from Oregon, but is that his actual name? Is his name Puddles? Is that something I don't know?
It might not be, but my daughter went to Oregon, and
Nice.
they always called the mascot Puddles.
It's a fun time up there. But since you said it is back to square one, this lawsuit is going to drag out, I think, for at least another 3 or 4 years is what I heard. So
I'll be long and safely dead before that thing.
I was going to ask if we could book you for the future, like if you could jot you down.
Because you really want more 83-year-old doddering nitwits on the radio.
Please, Ray, give yourself some credit. You're 93.
No, in the future I'll be.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. I did want to and kind of pivot a little bit, I guess, but you obviously are writing for The Defector now, and you wrote about one of my favorite people in sports right now, and that is the Panthers head coach, Paul Maurice. And I just love how, obviously he's funny. That's the number one thing, I guess, that people would draw from it is he's really funny. But when he does his press conferences or when he's speaking during interviews, he's always incredibly thoughtful. And it seems like he really wants to give a good answer. Have you ever seen another coach like that? Or is this guy kind of one of one?
It's a brilliant tactic.
Yeah.
It's just, how much time do I want to spend with these guys? Not very much. How can I best minimize the amount of time I have to eat in the day humoring them? And so his version of that is to just say, well, I am going to think about the answer, and I'm going to pretend like it matters to me for those few minutes. And then I can get back to the stuff I really want to do. And I think, I think what he says is genuine, but I think the overarching picture is, how do I make it so that they're not a pain in the ass? And he is better than most. I don't know of many other people who will, think about the answer that he gives you. I mean, Steve Kerr might be one of those, although he's less interested in that now that he's been doing this for 10 years.
I think it depends on the question. As long as it's not about when he's playing Jonathan Kuminga and how many minutes he's playing Moses Moody, then I think like any other question.
Or why Jason Tatum's not playing.
You can irritate Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been doing this for 10 years with a team that has largely won, and people hate that he's a coach. I mean, he caught more crap after they beat South Sudan by 1 in what was ostensibly a friendly. I mean, they don't, but Paul Maurice has simply simplified his day. Okay, I'll take your question seriously because I know in the end, once I'm done with the answer, I'm done with the answer. It's just, do I think other coaches would do that? No, because I don't think they want to bother. but he puts in a few extra minutes a day for that, and then he's done with it. And nobody sits there and talks mean about him or, urges that he be fired or that he's a bad communicator. I mean, he's been doing this more than half his life. I mean, that's an absurd stat.
Yeah.
He's been coaching in the National Hockey League for more than 50% of his lifespan. And you do that by eliminating needless stress. And that's one way you do it. I mean, you're still going to have stress, when, you get 3 good guys hurt and you have to replace them with 3 bad guys. But, in terms of the media is only as big a pain as you want to make it. And he's figured out a way to make it not much of a pain. So, I mean, that's the tactic there, and it's brilliant.
So, along those lines, you wrote about this in The Defector. What do you think about the NFL head coaches now being forced to do these in-game interviews and how they're going to approach it?
If I were them, I would learn another language and just answer the questions in that language. Just, okay, I have to be here. I have to say words, but you can't tell me what words to say, and you can't tell me in what language they have to be. And yeah, that's going to suck for Lisa Salters, but she's just collateral damage in this.
Yeah.
Sideline interviews during games in every sport are monumentally stupid. The only person who's ever been known for anything they've said in an in-game interview is Greg Popovich, because he was dismissive of the whole process, unless it was Craig Sager.
Yeah.
Every other one says something forgettable because they don't want to deal with it, so they give as little thought to it as possible. So they stonewall it, and people get pissed off. I mean, why the owners think this is important is beyond me. Why the networks think it's important is beyond me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good for Lisa Salters because she should have a job too, but it's a stupid job.
Yeah.
And you could put Lisa Salters to much better use in other parts of the broadcast.
No, I agree. I think it's a waste of time. But I'm glad you brought up Greg Popovich, because I remember years ago when the Spurs and Warriors were playing in the Western Conference Finals, and I remember you and him having an interaction where you asked him a question and he kind of poo-pooed the question, and you're just like, okay, Greg, okay, I get it. Yep, you don't like the question. I get it. I don't know what your guys' relationship was, but I'm just curious, who did you cover as a coach that you found to be just so irritating in their responses to your questions?
Well, I'll first tell you the end of that Popovich story.
Okay.
We leave the interview room, and I'm walking out, and Popovich comes up behind me and gives me a hug and starts laughing, because I knew him when he was an assistant for Don Nelson with the Warriors. And so he knew what he was doing. I knew what he was doing. And so, we had a couple of minutes where we just talked, just nonsense, BS. But yeah, oh no, it's part of the shtick. He knows it. I know it. Yeah. It was fine. As for the most difficult coach, I don't know if there's anyone who's aggressively worse than any other. But they're all sort of tedious in their own way, because one, they have all the advantages in any interview because they know more about our business than we know about theirs. And the other thing is, if you want to get a coach to like you, you have to sort of write nice things about them, even when it's not called for. And so if there's a coach that I find irksome, I would just not talk to him. I'd find some other people to talk to. Mm-hmm. There's nothing in the handbook that says you have to have a quote from the coach. So I was never troubled by that. And I never took any of it personally because, one, they barely knew me anyway. And two, when I went home, I wasn't going to dwell on, oh, so-and-so didn't explain to me that play on 3rd and 4, because I don't care. And he knows I don't care. And I think secretly he doesn't care.
I'm sure there's an agenda with some, especially maybe players who want to get into broadcasting. Maybe they're a little more affable with the media, but who in your career has been a guy that, I don't know, maybe even looked forward to talking to you and others, who was willing to hold court in the locker room, was receptive to criticism? Who's kind of that one figure in sports that you look back on who was always kind of a joy to talk to?
Joy is probably putting it too strongly.
Yeah, joy with Ray. Jesus.
Sorry.
Well, no, don't start with me. Just
Oh.
don't start with me.
I already started.
I think that the one who was the most thoughtful and the most worthwhile to spend time with was Dave Stewart. Just he didn't have time for posing or others. I mean, he was one of those thoughtful guys who cared about the answer he gave. And it wasn't because he was sucking up to the media because he wanted to get into the business. It just he valued his words more than most do. I don't know that very many players value their words now because they know how disposable they are. So it doesn't matter to them what they say and in connection with what question. I mean, more coaches than not now will give you an answer that they want to give you, whether you ask the question that has anything to do with that answer or not. They're just going to say, I am saying this now.
Yeah.
And then it's your problem. So I mean, Stewart's probably the best. There have been others, but for the most part, I recognized what the drill was. They had to pretend to be polite, and I had to pretend to care.
Yeah. Speaking of Dave Stewart, I don't know if you've seen the story, but I'm sure you have, by Susan Slusser, about the Oakland Ballers and what's going on with them in their first year. Talks about how the players are being mistreated, whether it comes to housing or injuries. And Stu's wife is representing a lot of the players as an agent. Just curious, have you seen this the story, and what are your thoughts on it?
Oh yeah. Well, on the one hand, I mean, the Ballers have just started, so they're going to make tons of mistakes.
Yeah.
So the real question is whether they mean to make those mistakes or not, and that I don't know. And if they are just sort of, happy-go-lucky bumblers, all right, you can sort of expect that because they're new at this. But if they're mendacious weasels, we'll find out soon enough. I just don't know that we have enough information to know whether they mean to screw stuff up the way they screw stuff up. I mean, they're new out of the box too. And while I tend not to be sympathetic to owners and operators, this is a whole new paradigm, and maybe they don't have enough money, in which case, well, they shouldn't have bought the team to begin with. They shouldn't have gotten involved. But I think there are still too many holes in this story to know fully whether they're evil, stupid, or just unprepared. I am not sure that they're evil yet, or I'm not sure that it's been shown that they're evil. They may just be goofs.
Just experiencing growing pains. Like it does feel like it's just so early on. And of course we think that these guys should have accommodations. Of course we think they should be treated for injuries when they actually get injured. But I don't know. It almost feels like the Ballers are just kind of, I don't want to say learning on the fly, but it almost feels that way. Like they step one, they got the city behind them and they got the fans behind them, but step two, I guess we got to take care of the players. And I don't think that's something they knew how to do.
I'm sort of with you. I don't think they gave thought to all the things you have to do.
Right.
If you're going to run a company like that. And it's more complicated, with baseball than it is like, opening a 7-Eleven. I don't think they've given enough thought to all the details you have to work out. And we'll know next year. If they're still around and they're still having these problems, then it means they're more than just stupid, that there's something worse.
Right.
But for now, I'm inclined to give them the benefit of the doubt simply because I get the sense that they're people who knew something about what they wanted to do, but not all of it.
So there's a lot of outrage with, I guess, how a lot of the front offices are run by the Bay Area teams. Mostly right now, it's Giants fans with Farhan. They don't think he's doing enough. I think that they just don't like him. I think a lot of Warrior fans are upset with how the team is not as aggressive as they were in years past, and they're wrongfully blaming Mike Dunleavy. I think fans are expecting John Lynch to just throw money at every player that needs a new contract. And then there's the Sharks with Macklin Celebrini. So I just want to know, Ray, which team do you think has the brightest future ahead of them?
Probably the 49ers.
Okay.
Only because their front office is the most developed and the most buttoned down, and is the one that is least dependent on local fans for its survival. I mean, if nobody went to a 49er game, they would still make tons of money every year. So money's never an issue with them. The only thing that's an issue for them is, how do they win a Super Bowl if they haven't won in 30 years? Yeah, I mean, Kyle Shanahan's going to have this job for as long as he wants it, because Jed York, A, tripped over a good one, and B, doesn't want to do another coaching search while he's alive. So, I think they're the ones who are best set, just because the NFL is basically blow-proof, and the 49ers have been successful for most of Shanahan's tenure. After that, I'm hesitant to say the Warriors, because I think they're going to find out that Stephen Curry was a one-off, that there is no successor to him. Not in terms of playing. You could probably find somebody who can do some of the things he does, but he is so important to that franchise and that operation that I don't think you can replace him. You'd have to get really lucky. The Giants, I don't know, because I don't know whether Charlie Johnson's a very good owner or not. I mean, he's got his kid in charge, and that usually spells disaster, because Nepo babies don't normally, thrive.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Well, in all honesty, I was aiming this at you all along. No,
Nice.
What's Greg Johnson's MO, except that his dad owns the largest share of the team?
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he's a dope or anything. It's just, that's the only way he got into the job. And I haven't seen him do enough to make this feel like it's his. And I don't know that he has to, but I think when you don't know, I tend to be leery of what the future is. And the Sharks, they're heading for the same thing, because Hasso Plattner has trainloads of money, and he's never really skimped, and he's never gone to the city and demanded a new arena. He's never done any things that make us hate owners. But he's also damn near 80. And unless he's planning to live to be about 110, at some point he's either going to want to pass the team on to his kids or sell them to somebody else. And the truest thing about sports is, if you think your owner's bad, wait till the one who buys the team from him. He'll be way worse. So I'm going to say, based on that criteria alone, Jed York is the furthest from death, therefore is probably the best positioned.
Okay. Fair enough.
As for situation, I can't.
Yeah. Thanks. For
you.
In your explanation with the Giants, you mentioned Charles Johnson. I'm curious to get your opinion on how fans react to Farhan, or just how the media reacts to Farhan, or just how you react to Farhan, because I feel like while some criticism is warranted, it feels like a lot is unnecessary, in my opinion.
Well, you have to flesh that out a little bit, because the team sort of, it hasn't cratered, but it's become a mediocrity on his watch.
Yeah,
he's been there long enough to where he can't point to anybody else. This is his creation. Now, granted, the team they're putting out today is him basically justifying, or attempting to justify, their farm system. There are more new guys that are homegrown than they've had in forever. And should that take 5 years? I don't know. But, his predecessor won 3 World Series. He's gotten to the playoffs once.
Yeah.
You live by what you follow, and he followed Brian Sabian. So to that extent, whatever grief he catches, that's part of the deal.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not paying him, $8.50 an hour to do that job. They're paying him well. And part of that pay comes from him having to take the grief that Greg Johnson doesn't have to take. So in terms of whether it's fair or not, you can argue that one way or another. But it's like jumping off a building and then complaining about gravity. It's just, these are the conditions that prevail.
Yeah.
Don't be 79 and 83 and people will like you more.
What's one thing that you can point to where you're thinking, okay, because I mean, there's so many factors that play into building a contender. It's not as cut and dry as it's made out to be. But what is like the one thing that you're looking at and you're like, wow, yeah, he did that poorly. Like he was wrong to do that move or maybe make some transaction. Like what's one thing to you that he just does not do well?
I don't think he's great with the media, which means he's not great with the fan base. And that doesn't tend to matter a lot, except when you have to explain why you couldn't land the big fish. And the Giants have become that team that is known for being in on everybody and getting nobody. And that's entirely a function of his job. Don't tell us about Aaron Judge unless you're willing to overpay. You've got to be willing to splash around money like it's nothing. And I know that's not his call, but you can't act like money's no object if it is.
Right.
I mean, there is absolutely no reason to say, well, we have the same offer that the Yankees had. Well, the Yankees win every year, and they're in the biggest town in America. You don't win every year, and you're not in the biggest town in America. So you have to spend more than the Yankees.
Right.
And the same thing when they were noodling around Ohtani. Now they probably weren't going to get him anyway. But if you're good with the media and you can, get a message across, you don't get people's hopes up that high. You say, well, we're going to be involved. I don't know what the end game is. And at some point we might have to drop out. But, this is what we're planning to do.
Right.
And the truth is he's not good at that. And I don't think he wants to be good at that. He is in some ways, the same kind of guy as David Forrest, who, runs the A's and frankly runs them fairly well given the constraints he's under. But he's also awful with the media. Not rude, just not communicative. And at some point, part of that job is selling. And I don't think they sell very well. I can't evaluate how their scouting system is.
Right.
You find out when players come up, and usually it takes several years. But in terms of what you can see, Farhan has not been able to either tamp down expectations or explain why they should be tamped down. And I think that's a problem that he's exhibited more than once. He's always like 5 days late with a presser after something goes wrong.
Right.
You have to be able to walk out right away and just say, this is what happened. I mean, that was one of the things that was good about Sabian. He didn't schmooze the press a lot, but when it was time to go out and either face the music or explain something that needs to be explained, he didn't hesitate. And I think of the complaints that fans should have about him, that's probably a small one.
Yeah.
But if you can't sell what you're doing, people are going to stop believing in you. And the only way you can sell what you're doing with that is you have to win every year. And I think we can say that he hasn't won every year.
Someone that's, or at least an entity that is going to have to do a lot of selling to their fans, I think, is the U.S. Soccer Federation, specifically for the U.S. men's national team, whenever they do end up hiring a successor to Greg Berhalter. I just wanted to get your take on, it just feels like the women's team. I mean, they obviously, I think they struck gold with Emma Hayes and what they're doing in the Olympics right now. They might actually win gold with Emma Hayes. The under 23 squad that just played in the Olympics, they reached the quarterfinal for the first time ever. but this U.S. senior team continues to disappoint year after year. What do you think has just been the biggest blemish on their, I don't know, tenure with Berhalter and what they're going to do beyond?
They're not good enough.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to be smug about this, but what country in Europe are they better than?
Right.
You know, players go to Europe to get better. So that should tell you something right then and there.
Yeah.
The second thing that's wrong with U.S. soccer is it's run by suits. You know, I mean, they don't have like that one commanding figure who knows about the sport, and then everybody says, yeah, he knows it. I mean, if I were them, I would basically throw $30 million a year at Jurgen Klopp. And say, run this. I know you're burned out, but we'll take burned out you. Just overpay. And they're, you know, but they live on this, you know, nonsensical budget that, you know, nobody cares about. We just want to know, when are you going to make players better? And Berhalter didn't. I mean, you know, he's fallen into better players, but I don't know that he's made them particularly better than they should be.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest drawback is they're still relatively late coming to the party. You know, you can't catch up with Germany or England or Spain or, you know, countries like that, because they've always got, you know, benefits that you don't have. You know, it's the most important sport in those countries. So they get the best players. I mean, there are just some structural things that go well beyond Berhalter's pay grade.
Right.
But if you're looking to maximize what you have right now, give Jurgen Klopp $30 million. Make him the richest coach, not only in soccer, but in America. You say it's more important to us than what the Patriots do with Bill Belichick's job. If they want it that badly, that's what you do, because that's what America does best. Throw money. If they don't want to throw money, then they're, you know, you're just going to be ordinary.
Well, who is the next best name though? If Klopp's not the guy, because he said he ruled it out. But I mean, if you give him 30 million reasons to come back, then I mean, he might.
Oh yeah, he'd be invigorated almost immediately.
Yeah.
And yes, I just called him a hypocrite. That's the kind of low grade human being I am. Well, the last guy I heard was Matarazzo, the guy from New Jersey who's been coaching in Europe.
Right.
But it's now been a month almost.
Yeah.
They still haven't figured out, and all they do is like leak the occasional name.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, frankly, I don't know that it matters that much who the coach is, because I didn't think the coach was the problem. You know, it's not like Gio Reyna has set the world on fire since that incident with the national team. I mean, he's, you know, and I think really, other than Christian Pulisic, they haven't had anybody thrive for any extended period overseas. So a team with one player, I don't know how much silverware do you think that's going to win you?
Right.
And I'm not knocking Pulisic, although I loathe the fact that he's overhyped, but that's not his fault either. You know, I just don't think they have good enough players in enough positions. And that's a development problem. That's a youth problem. That's an everything problem.
Yeah.
And if Greg Berhalter would have been able to fix all of those things, he should have been paid $30 million.
Well, Ray, you've been very generous with your time, so we'll get out of here with just one more question, but it's the most important question. I saw you wrote an article about this in The Defector, and here's the article. Wings are what you order when you're out of self-respect. The hell's your problem with wings, Ray?
1, chicken's not good. 2, it's tiny chicken, so you're not even getting bang for your buck.
Oh my God.
And 3, it's too much work. You have to navigate around bones. There are other ways to get your junk food fix.
Well, what's your go-to?
Depends on the mood. But if you put a gun to my head, and frankly, that's not a bad idea.
I usually do.
Probably pizza.
Okay, fair enough.
No, wings are wrong.
Why?
One,
I mean, you just
I
said
just
why.
told you.
I don't get why.
And also,
what do chickens do best? Lay eggs. So why would you slaughter them before you get the eggs? I rest my case.
So we could eat wings. That's the whole point.
No, you don't eat wings. Where's your dignity? Why don't you just lay face up in a dumpster with your mouth open and see if you get potluck?
Because this is what our ancestors used to do, Ray. The reason we love the Olympics so much is because this links us back to the olden times. And eating chicken wings, it's something that could be passed on from generation to generation and never will. It's timeless.
First of all, your ancestors didn't eat wings. I know that for a fact. Your last name's Langford, for God's sake. And unless you grew up in Buffalo, you didn't eat wings as a kid.
No.
And I have no idea what Derek eats. I mean, it's not agreeing with him.
Yeah, pretty much. It's terrible food all the time. But no, Ray. I mean, yes, I didn't. I mean, my dad's from Buffalo. Went to Buffalo all the time. Went to the world famous Anchor Bar where they eat wings. Wings is just just good food. I guess you're not a fan of the Hot Ones show where they eat wings, spicy wings, and answer questions.
No, actually, that's a pretty clever idea. It could never appear on it because it would mean eating a wing.
So when's the last time you ate a chicken wing?
I don't know that I ever have.
Oh, come on.
Listen, I'm proud to say I've never eaten a burrito. So you think I can't hold out on a wing?
Never eaten a burrito.
Jesus, Ray, live a little bit. I mean, you're making fun of us for not dating, and Steven's gonna get married here, but live a little bit. Jesus.
Look, if you're going to call me Jesus, that's just buttering me up, but it's not historically accurate.
Well, you have the beard, but
no, wings don't do it for me. Chicken doesn't do it for me. Chicken is evil.
Yeah. Well,
it has one responsibility. It does it well, and then we want to kill it.
All right, there you go.
No, that's so us.
Well, Derek eats the Ray. I'll tell you, Derek eats the hottest possible wing. He gets like there's no enjoyment with the way Derek eat wings. He gets like the atomic flavor from Wingstop, which is the hottest flavor you can get, the highest in Scoville units.
But now you speak to one other weakness of wings.
What's that?
It's entirely dependent on the sauce.
Nobody
eats a wing without some sort of sauce.
I have before, but it definitely adds.
You'd spit it out.
I wouldn't spit it out. It's wasted chicken.
You would spit it out. I'm telling you.
I'm
ordering you.
If I spit or swallow, Ray.
Question me. No, I mean, wings are just a delivery system for sauce, but you can put sauce on anything without the wing.
That is true. That is true. But yeah, no, I love a good challenge. I love challenges with my food.
I would say it should be enough of a challenge for you to be able to get your hand to aim it toward your mouth.
It is quite the challenge.
More than one time when you've jammed a wing in your eye just because you missed.
Well, especially with the hot sauce, it hurts like hell.
No, I mean, I applaud the hot sauce entirely. Well done to you. But the chicken wing is unnecessary to the process.
All right. Well,
it's a glorified napkin and tastes about as good.
So basically you're saying is we should just mainline our hot sauces.
Absolutely.
Well, that's what we do sometimes.
Drink Cholula like it's gin.
Cholula and juice, baby. All right, before we get out of here, Ray, just one quick question. I don't know if you saw, but my father made his triumphant return back to NBC Sports Bay Area doing Giants postgame. I just have to ask, when you guys were doing the happy hour, did he put as much hair dye back then as he does now?
He was never there enough for me to really look. No, it's one of the great NBC stories of all time.
Go for it.
This was a grand idea by the new general manager. He thought this show was going to take off, and he got me, Kelly Johnson, and Greg.
Yep.
Only Greg almost never did the show. There was either something else he had to do, something else he wanted to do, or he just wanted to avoid this on its own. It was largely Kelly and I. And in that sense, I don't know what he did with his hair. He was a blur. He was a rumor that, frankly, I mean, just, is Greg still alive? Well, I don't know. I'll check upstairs. And they weren't looking for Greg upstairs. They were looking for HR to see if he was still employed. He was just doing other stuff.
Yeah.
So in terms of the happy hour, I can give you no education.
Well, for what I remember was that they wanted the show to be edgy. So the initial thought was going to be where you guys would drink on the air, but then you found out that you couldn't do that.
No, we could drink on the air. They just didn't want us to.
What was the point of that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Why didn't the show died in 11 months? It lasted less long than a 13th century child. I mean, God, thing just got crushed. No, the only way to do that show is drunk. They should have let us drink 2 hours before.
And the only way to watch it was to be drunk.
And get a good heat on to get on there and just start windmilling.
Yeah.
Instead, no, we were sober talking about stuff that nobody cared about. What do you think about the Giants' backup center fielder? I don't. I'm trying to live a life here. What the Giants are doing in the minor leagues is of no interest to me. Leave me alone. Go away.
There you go.
You could have really changed sports television forever if you guys were able to drink on the air. I think that might have, set the bar. But yeah.
Well, no, it would have lowered the bar. Let's be honest.
Yeah.
It would have been good for us.
Yeah. Would have made the time go faster.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at Kelly and go, why are there three of you?
Yeah, exactly.
Is the real you the one in the middle? I think us being blind drunk on a daily basis would have saved that show.
It honestly, yes, it could have.
Of course, I'd have to sleep there because I would never be able to drive home. But
right.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'll be used to that, right? You can just crawl in a little hole and sleep there.
Again, and I don't want to make too big a thing of this, but I hate you.
Okay. Well, that's a good time to end then. Ladies and gentlemen, Ray Ratto, you can read his work at The Defector. Ray, are there any aspirations? I know radio is done for right now. Any aspirations to talk to the masses again? Maybe a podcast, anything?
No, not really.
Right.
I mean, there are already too many podcasts, and most of them are horrific failures.
Case in point.
Hello.
At Defector, we've got two that are very popular and one that's made a ton of money and won a bunch of awards, but it's hard to do. In terms of radio, that's up to somebody else. TV, I look like me. Who's going to put me on TV? I'm like a bag of old chewed gum.
Well, Ray, we hope to see more of you in the future. If you want to come on this podcast, let us know because we know you had just a blast doing it today.
Yeah.
If I wasn't enjoying myself, I would have left long ago.
Oh, that's the nicest thing you ever said.
Oh.
Well, it's not sincere, but it's a good fake.
Hey, I'll take it. Ray?
I know you're easy that way.
What's that?
I know you're easy that way.
Oh, I'm very easy. Ray, love you.
You're such a slag.
Thanks, Ray.
Later, Ray. Thank you, boy.
Take care.
Buddy. Boy. Jeez.
You just called him boy?
I'm going to say thank you, buddy. I'm going to ban him from the studio so I never make that mistake again.
Kicked
from the studio. That was fun.
That was great.
Love Ray.
God, that
I mean, honestly, now that he's gone, I can speak honestly about him. He is, I know me and him joke around and hurl insults at each other, but he is probably the smartest man in sports, in my opinion.
He's very, I think he's balanced. I think he's very good in admitting, like, no, this is stupid that we're even, like the training camp thing. I think the training camp stuff puts it perfectly. Like, we're just, like you said, you're just cluttered with content and you're trying to feed the beast. And the beast right now, what it wants is training camp. But the beast isn't, the beast shouldn't dictate what we talk about. But this is kind of the era that we live in, where you got to have some sort of take. Like the Brock Purdy thing, it was interesting. The only guy I saw call him out was Chris Sims. That's the only guy who seems to have this weird vendetta against Purdy. It's odd.
I I don't get Chris sometimes, man, because when he breaks things down, he's very smart. But when it comes to, the interceptions are way too much in training camp. Come on, Chris.
Yeah.
You were a quarterback in training camp. You know the deal. Like, this is the guy that had a hard time spitting out John Gruden's, play calls. You're going to tell me that Brock Purdy throwing a bunch of interceptions in a training camp practice is a big deal? Come on. That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And real quick, let's just, before we get out of here, the stories that we did bring up with Ray for a little bit. Colin Cowherd teasing all of us with the Brandon Ayuk stuff. Like, I texted a few people that know Cowherd. A lot of people are like, I don't know where he's getting it from. It sounds like, I guess it may have been a setup. I don't know if this is true either, but I saw I think Niners 24/7 had this, where apparently they wanted to set it up where they gave that information to somebody potentially to leak it. And then when they found out Colin Cowherd took the bait, they knew that this guy was the rat. So I don't know. I don't know. Shanahan addressed the whole handshake thing. It's just how they greet each other. I don't know if I entirely believe that. Something may be on the horizon. Who knows? But until Rappaport or Schefter have a tweet of Brandon Ayuk is signed, let's just all calm our tits.
So the Ayuk signing, or lack thereof, has kind of spawned this conversation about the 49ers Super Bowl window, right?
Mm-hmm,
and a lot of the discussion is this could be your last chance to win a Super Bowl with this specific core. That's great, but I think that's such a nuanced discussion because as far as I'm concerned, dude, maybe not, maybe they don't sign Brandon Ayuk to a long-term deal, but it feels like if you have your head coach, you have Kyle Shanahan, who's as good as he is, even though people fault him for his, I guess, maybe sometimes a lack of preparation in big games or his play calling. You should have run here instead of pass. Oh, you shouldn't have had this drive where you're throwing, where you go 3 and out and you passed on all 3 plays. Like, that's unacceptable when you have Christian McCaffrey. Oh, okay, sure. But you do have a head coach who can just toy with defensive coordinators, right? Do whatever he wants. Like, okay, your Super Bowl window, it might be your last Super Bowl potentially with this core, your Super Bowl chance. But beyond this, I don't know. You got your head coach, you got your quarterback. If you don't pay Ayuk, then you're likely going to pay a lot of these other guys who have helped you get to the Super Bowl. I mean, can't you take some solace in the fact that you're probably going to be a playoff team for years to come, at least? And if you're a playoff team, then your Super Bowl window is still open. Like, that's what I'd consider a Super Bowl window. As long as you can make the playoffs, you have a chance at the Super Bowl. You could get a little luck and, potentially go on to the big game. I don't see this thing. I'm sure the train might slow down, but I don't see this thing stopping anytime soon. I think the 49ers are a freight train from hell, and they're going to be a contender in the NFC for probably the rest of this decade, if I'm honest, man.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they have Shanahan and Purdy and the right people in front, then yeah, I think so. But I mean, the last dance terminology is thrown out so much these days.
Too much, man. It's too much to me. Like you heard Ray. He thinks the 49ers are best suited for the future. Yeah. No, he did say because Jed York is farthest away from dying, but like that was a joke for him. I mean, what he meant was
they have really had a truth to that.
Yeah, right. But they have set this thing up for success here down the road. And I just think, okay, you're talking Super Bowl, you have your expectations high. Okay, but you should at least have some relief in that. Well, if they don't win the Super Bowl, okay, but they're at least going to be a playoff team for the next few years. And if you're a playoff team, you're going to contend for a Super Bowl. So it's this weird conversation where it's like, I don't know. I want to say the sky is falling, but the sky is starting to fall after this year. Maybe you might not be a Super Bowl favorite, but is that such a bad thing?
It just means that the guys that you were so accustomed to seeing there from the start won't be there anymore. But that just happens with, roster, changing and everything. Like we'll see what happens. I will say, I think some things will come to a head this upcoming week, whether it's CeeDee Lamb or any other wide receivers. We saw Tristan Wirfs get paid this past week. He's the highest paid tackle in football. Maybe something happens with Trent this week. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I just know that we'll actually have some like football to watch instead of all this other shit. I'm not gonna act like I watched the entire Hall of Fame game. I didn't. I had it on in the background. I wanted to see the kickoff, Steven. Did you see the kickoffs at least?
I didn't watch a single second live, but I saw the kickoff.
Yeah, my first initial reaction was, it's gonna take some time. It's weird. Well, no, like I just want to see the kickoffs, and it's early on. Like I don't think guys are ready to do it yet. But my first reaction was, I don't think runners are gonna have enough time to run.
Yeah.
But then as time goes on, I could see once you get the blocking going, if a guy just gets one small crease, he's gone. So we'll see. It could be a disaster. It could be fun. I have no idea, but I'm not going to make a sweeping judgment on it just from one Hall of Fame game.
It did make me laugh, though. It did make me laugh that the whole point was to increase player safety and increase the action.
And guys just fell on their ass.
And literally the first time it just, well, he's down at the 26.
Yeah, it was quick.
It's the same thing. Yeah. I think Ray's kind of right in that they're just gonna throw shit against the wall to find what sticks.
Yeah, exactly.
And I don't think this one, I don't know. This one's already been thrown against the wall, and you're already starting to see some streaks heading downward on that shit because it has not stuck yet.
But we'll see, though. I mean, like, if there's anything that fans don't complain about a lot, it's kickoff or special team stuff. So as long as, like, you know, plays from scrimmage, if you start tinkering with that, that's when people get an uproar. I don't think people will care that much. Like, now we're so used to the extra point being from 33 yards away that no one cares. There's missed PATs all the time. I think we're okay. I think we'll be fine. It won't be a thing we're all up in arms. Just maybe a weird thing to look at the first few weeks. And lastly, the Hall of Fame ceremony yesterday. I enjoy watching the Hall of Fame every year. I think it's kind of the start of football in a way. And like Ray said, there was no big standout guys going in this year. It was just a lot of, you know, good, solid players that we watched when we were growing up. So I thought Dwight Freeney gave the best speech out of all of them. A lot of it was like, you know, let me speak on the scripted speech that I had. None of them are going to be memorable. But it's just nice seeing guys that, you know, I just feel like I watched them yesterday. Devin Hester, Patrick Willis, Julius Peppers, Andre Johnson, guys that really weren't known for sound bites speaking. So it was good to see that yesterday. And I saw a lot of, I thought was really cruel. Stephen McMichael, the defensive end or defensive tackle for the Chicago Bears back in the day, he was bedridden, was not able to go to the ceremony himself. And yes, it was jarring to see his mouth open and everything amongst his loved ones, but goddamn, some aggregators being like, making fun of the way he looked, like, Jesus Christ, like, the man's obviously dying, and it's one of his big moments before he goes. So I thought that was incredibly insensitive, but I love the moment that he was able to do that with his family there.
Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, I didn't like any of that.
That's terrible.
Yep.
They're introducing the guys to the men's sprinters for the 100 meter for the final, and the first guy from Team USA, he seemed unsure about whether he should go or not. He just kept on looking in the background, giving like a thumbs up, and he got really mad at like a producer or something. It was really funny.
I'll see that clip later.
Anyway, what I've been doing to prepare for football season, Derek, as you know, I enjoy watching the videos on the top 100. I am down from 100 to 91. I got to go forward. And first 10 spots that I watched, I've already taken a liking to the entire Indianapolis Colts team because a majority of Zaire Franklin's little thing, I think he was voted number 99. A majority of it was making fun of him for lining up at fullback and not hitting anyone on a play that went to Mo Alley Cox. It's really funny the way the entire team's like, yeah, he didn't hit anyone though. You know, he's like, I wasn't meant to hit anybody. That was not my assignment. And then like they're just all making fun of him. And then another highlight, Cam and Connor Hayward. Connor Hayward, the tight end for the Steelers, and Cam, his brother. It really is a big brother, little brother scenario. Oh my God, is Cam Hayward big? But watching those two go back and forth, I haven't seen like a double headshot of these NFL top 100 things. So I'm liking their little their back and forth so far. It's great.
Okay. All right. I haven't watched any of the show, honestly, because I don't have NFL Plus. Did you see the top 10 list in the end?
No, I didn't actually.
Okay, I'll wait because we could talk about it next podcast. I think the whole list is bullshit, to be honest. Just ridiculous. All right, that's it for today, guys. Thanks to everybody in the chat watching the show today, and special thanks to Mr. Ray Ratto. It was really a blast to have him on. I love picking his brain for everything that's going on in sports. And like I said, I think he's incredibly intelligent with the way he thinks about things. So it was, and obviously he's a Bay Area icon. So it was just awesome for him to spend time on our little thing. So very much special thanks to Ray for doing that.
Pretty sweet. It was awesome.
All right. Next time we're on Wednesday, we'll be talking about Hard Knocks. Chicago Bears. We'll see how much we get of Caleb Williams and Tyson Bagent. We'll talk a little bit about, I guess, now we're going to preseason games. This QB competition with the Raiders will heat up a little bit. We'll have our first game on Saturday. And maybe we did this last year. Maybe we start doing the division kind of previews we did last year where we look at each team and how things set up. So we'll figure that next time. But thank you guys for listening and watching, and as always. And Steven, say what you always say.
It is just our opinion, man.